What's up, everyone, and welcome to NFL Nexus. The Indianapolis Colts are right there. I mean, they're knocking on the door of greatness. But the big question is, can they finally seal the deal in the 2026 draft? Today, we're opening up the GM's dossier to figure out if this is the year they build a true championship roster. Okay, let's get into this. So this is it. This is the question that really hangs over everything for the Colts this offseason. We're not talking about just another draft here. This is a massive tipping point for the franchise. After last season, where they really stood tall against some of the best teams in the league, the vibe in Indy is that they are this close. But hey, close doesn't get you a Lombardi trophy. Every single player we're about to break down, every pick, it all gets measured against this one question. Does this move make us a Super Bowl team? And hey, before we dive into all the nitty-gritty details, if you could do us a huge favor and hit that subscribe button and give this video a like, it really helps us keep these deep dives coming. And we definitely want to hear from you. Let us know down in the comments who you think the Colts absolutely have to take at pick 47. Can't wait to see what you guys think. All right, you ready to go deep? Here's our playbook for today. We're going to kick things off with the huge stakes for 2026. Then we'll get a good look at the Colts' war chest of draft picks. From there, we'll zero in on their biggest needs, scout some of the top guys on the board, and even dig into the front office's past drafts to see if we can spot a pattern. And trust me, you're going to want to stick around for our final segment on the Chris Bell gamble, a perfect example of a classic draft day dilemma. Let's do it. So, why is this year so pivotal? Why is it a potential game changer for the Colts? Well, it's because last season they proved they were more than just a feel-good story. They were a legit threat. They went up against the NFL's heavyweights and showed they belonged. But, being a tough out in the playoffs, that's not the ultimate goal. The goal is to be the team. This draft represents their best shot to stop knocking on the door and just kick it right off the hinges. Yeah, and Douglas Fritz from Clutch Points just hit the nail on the head here. The two most important words in that whole quote: careful draft picks. See, it's not about just accumulating picks, it's about making the right ones. When you're this close to the top, your margin for error just vanishes. It's basically zero. A couple of real impact players from this draft, that could be the literal difference between having another solid season and actually hoisting a trophy. The pressure is absolutely on. Okay, now let's pop the hood and see what the Colts are actually working with. This right here, this is their entire arsenal for draft weekend in Pittsburgh. These are the bullets in the chamber, the assets they're going to use to shape this team for years to come. So the first thing that jumps right off the page is what's not there. See that big empty spot in round one? That's because their first rounder was the main piece they sent to the Jets in that blockbuster trade for superstar corner Sauce Gardner. So that means on day one of the draft, the Colts' war room is going to be pretty quiet. Their first time on the clock isn't until pick 47, which puts an insane amount of pressure on mailing that pick. After that, they've got a solid handful of picks to work with, but man, all eyes are going to be on that first big move on day two. So with their picks laid out, it's time to pull up the team's blueprint. Look, a team this close to contention isn't full of massive holes, but they definitely have a few specific spots that have to be addressed if they're serious about taking that next step. Let's pinpoint exactly where they need to aim their resources. We've narrowed it down to 3 critical areas. First up, edge rusher. They desperately need a guy who can consistently get after the quarterback. You can have Sauce Gardner locking down one side, but if the QB has all day to throw, it doesn't matter. Second, they need a dynamic, stat-stuffing linebacker to be the heart and soul of that defense, a true sideline-to-sideline monster. And third, with Michael Pittman Jr. gone, there's a huge void on the outside. They need a new number 1 wide receiver who can stretch the field and win those tough one-on-one battles. All right, this is the fun part. It's time to play general manager. We know the picks, we know the needs, so let's put on our scouting hats and start looking at the actual players who could fill these holes and become difference makers for the Colts. And hey, as we jump into these prospects, just a quick note. If you're looking for a really cool gift for a young football fan in your life, or let's be honest, for yourself, you can really help support the channel by checking out our NFL-themed coloring books. The link is right down there in the description, and we'll put a QR code up on the screen for you. We really appreciate all the support. Thank you. Let's kick things off at that crucial edge rusher position, and one name you keep hearing as a potential perfect fit is Zion Young out of Missouri. This guy brings the exact kind of power and mentality that this D-line has been missing. Really, the only question is, in a league that is always desperate for pass rushers, is he even going to be there at pick 47? Because if he is, he could be an absolute game changer. Man, Lance Zierlein's scouting report just says it all, doesn't it? Fiery alpha. That's not just a player, that's a whole mentality.
Young brings this incredible energy, this leadership. He just lives to physically dominate the guy across from him. He's all about block destruction, which is a fancy way of saying he's not trying to finesse his way around you. He's using pure, raw, violent power to just bulldoze right through you.
So here's the lowdown on Young. The pros are pretty obvious. You're getting that ideal NFL frame and that warrior mentality. He is an absolute monster against the run and has a bull rush that can just wreck a tackle's day. The catch, he's not a top-tier speed demon, and his pass rush moves are a little limited right now beyond that power rush. So the bottom line is, the Colts would be betting that their coaching staff can take all that incredible raw talent and mold it into a polished Pro Bowl caliber weapon.
Now, what if Zion Young is already gone by 47? Well, the Colts still have some solid options. Gage Jackus from Illinois is a really interesting guy because he's so versatile. You can line him up at edge, you can move him to linebacker. He's a true chess piece. Malachi Lawrence from UCF and R. Mason Thomas from Oklahoma are also really promising guys who have the tools you look for. The depth at this spot might actually play right into the Colts' hands in the second or third round.
Okay, let's switch gears and talk about the linebacker position. While a lot of the truly elite, blue-chip talent will probably be off the board by pick 47, there's a potential hidden gem who might just be a perfect fit for what the Colts need on defense. The incredibly productive Jacob Rodriguez from Texas Tech.
And when Zierlein calls him uniquely productive, he is not kidding. What's so wild about this guy is that he used to be an offensive player, and you can see he just has this natural, amazing instinct for finding the football. It's all over his stat line. He plays like a heat-seeking missile, always aggressive, and yeah, sometimes he'll take a risk, but he has this explosive speed that lets him recover and still make a huge play.
So, in a nutshell, Rodriguez is just a phenomenal athlete who has proven he can make big-time plays. His speed, his burst, his ability to close on the ball carrier, it's all off the charts. The only real downside is that his aggressive, see-ball-get-ball style can sometimes get him into trouble, and his instincts are still developing since he's new to the position. He's the definition of a high-risk, high-reward prospect. But man, the upside is massive.
If Rodriguez isn't the guy, well, there's Gage Jackus again, whose value is just tied to that incredible versatility. And Jake Goldeye from Cincinnati is another solid mid-round option who could come in and contribute. So the Colts really have a strategic choice here. Do they swing for the fences on a high-ceiling guy like Rodriguez early, or do they look for more of a sure thing in the later rounds?
Let's flip over to the offensive side of the ball now. With Michael Pittman Jr. gone, the Colts have a massive hole to fill. And there's one name that has been buzzing, a player with the talent to be an instant #1 receiver and a perfect fit for this offense, Chris Brazzell out of Tennessee. You know, sometimes one single workout can change everything for a prospect, and that is exactly what happened with Brazzell at the Combine. Before that day, scouts kind of had him pegged as a big, reliable possession-type receiver. But after he ripped off a jaw-dropping 4.37 in the 40-yard dash, the entire league's perception flipped. All of a sudden, he wasn't just a big receiver. He was a big receiver who could absolutely fly. I mean, Brazzell's scouting report is basically a wish list for a team that needs a new top receiver. He's got the size, he's got the speed, he's got the skills, the whole package. At 6'4" with that 80-inch wingspan and 4.37 speed, he is a physical nightmare for defensive coordinators to try and cover. The only problem? He might just be too good. There's a very real chance his stock has risen so much that he's long gone by pick 47. If he's there, though, it would be an absolute home run pick for the Colts. But you always have to have a plan B, and the Colts will need one if Brazzell is off the board. Jeremy Bernard from Alabama is a guy who's been battle-tested against the best competition in the country in the SEC. And you cannot sleep on a guy like Bryce Lance from North Dakota State. He could be the next great small school receiver to make a big splash in the league. There's still plenty of talent to be had if they miss out on their top guy. You know, to really get a feel for how the Colts might play their cards, especially with pick 47, we need to look at their track record. Digging into their past draft history gives us some really valuable clues about their team-building philosophy and what they look for in top-end talent. So looking back over the last 5 years, you can definitely see a pattern. The Colts have invested heavily in those premium positions. They've beefed up the defensive line with Kwity Paye and Laiatu Latu. They found a solid receiver in the second round with Alec Pierce, and they just grabbed a potential star at tight end in Tyler Warren. And then, of course, there was the huge swing for the fences, the big gamble on quarterback Anthony Richardson at number 4 overall. It's pretty clear they believe in building through high-impact players. And honestly, for the most part, the Colts have drafted really well recently.
Tyler Warren already looks like he's going to be a stud. Liatu Latu is clearly on the rise, and both Alec Pierce and Kwity Paye have become solid, reliable starters. But you just can't ignore the Anthony Richardson pick. Look, taking a QB that high is always a risk, but when a top 5 pick doesn't pan out, it's a major, major setback for the franchise.
Okay, this brings us to a classic draft day problem, the kind of tough call that can really define a GM's career. Let's talk about the Chris Bell gamble. Here you have a really talented wide receiver from Louisville, but he's got a massive injury red flag next to his name. This is where the draft gets dramatic, as teams have to weigh if that potential reward is worth the very, very real risk. And the numbers here, they tell a pretty dramatic story. After a solid career, Chris Bell was having a monster senior season in 2025. I mean, he was putting up huge numbers, earned first-team All-ACC honors. He was on top of the college football world. And then, in the final game of the season, disaster strikes. He tears his ACL, and his incredible run comes to a screeching halt just a few months before the draft.
Searline's report really sums up the whole dilemma perfectly. Bell is a big, physical guy who wins with his size and strength, not necessarily with elite, explosive speed. He absolutely has the potential to become a good, solid starting receiver in the NFL. But that ACL tear, it's a huge question mark that just clouds his entire draft profile. The Colts would be taking a shot on a guy who might not even be ready to play when the season starts.
And really, it all boils down to this one question. Is a potential starting receiver worth the massive risk of a serious ACL injury? That is the exact debate that's happening in the Colts war room right now. If they trust their medical staff and believe in the player's potential, maybe they take that leap of faith. But if they're a little more risk-averse, they'll probably play it safe and look somewhere else. It's a huge decision that could easily make or break their entire draft. And so that's where we are. The Colts stand at a critical crossroads. They have the draft capital, they have the opportunity, and they have a roster that is just so close to being elite. So will their 2026 draft class be remembered as that final, crucial piece of their Super Bowl puzzle? We're all going to have to wait and see. Let us know what you think they should do in the comments below, and don't forget to check out our coloring books in the description. Thanks for watching NFL Nexus. We'll be right here following every move the Colts make on their road to a championship.